Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. Today I'm going to be talking about perhaps the other side of the coin, which is what are the things that AI can do for us. And I'm going to be giving examples from a specific industry, which is highly data intensive, so there's a lot of opportunity. To start with, though, I want to give you a chance to relate some of the things that we've been experiencing for the past few decades. We've started our journey, and I see many of you are close to my age. We've started the journey analog, writing things on paper, and then soon realized that there was a digital world out there. Then things started to move online, things started to move to our mobile phones, and soon we started generating lots of data. Lots of data and different kinds of data. Think about the journey to here, which for many of you, like me, was quite adventurous this morning. We ended up taking different vehicles, we ended up walking, we ended up catching up on email, calling people, telling them I'm going to be early, I'm going to be late. All of this generated data for us. However, all of that data is meaningless if there are no tools for us to analyze it and make it useful. So the reason why we're seeing so much talk about AI, and particularly Gen AI, is because we've been collecting all of this data, and then this data gave rise to innovations in machine learning and AI for us to turn data, which is raw and meaningless to an average person, to useful information. And so it's no wonder that we live in a world where every industry is seeing disruption by data-driven innovation today. My examples are going to come from some of the research that I've been doing, and I'm fascinated by this setting of finance because it's a data-intensive industry where there's so much one can do with AI in terms of understanding customers better, giving them the products that they need, which I'll give you examples about, but at the same time, your data is sensitive, your assets are sensitive, and of course, it creates a really high threshold for trust. So let me ask you a quick question before I get started. If I were to tell you, okay, your bank, which is a global bank, imagine, has been under a cyber attack in the US. You read this on the paper, and before Toby gets on the case, I'm asking you, okay, is your money, is your data safe? And so you want to check whether your money is still there. How would you do that? What would you do in order to check whether your money is still there? Open the app. Great. Any other ways? Go to the branch, which you might have difficulty finding. What else? Just on the computer, perhaps? Like internet banking or mobile banking would be the two typical ways for you to get to your data. Now, here's another, perhaps more interesting question. The data that you see, imagine that your money is there, the data is there, phew, everything is good. Is that data yours? You can't really take it. If you could take it in terms of bank statements, which are difficult to read, right? So that data is there, but that data isn't practically yours because you cannot take it. What that means, of course, and this is done for security reasons, but what that means at the same time is that that data is going to sit at your bank, and others who might want to compete for your money are not going to have a chance to get to that data. Which explains why banking and finance in general have been an industry for decades of stifling innovation. However, regulators have seen this, and just like Toby said, they wanted to award the good guys, and so they decided to change regulation such that you have a secure way as a customer to share your data with others. We call this open banking. It means that if there's a new bank, imagine in the UK, for example, if Starling or Monzo or others wanted to ask me whether they could offer me a better mortgage rate, I'd be intrigued. And now there's a secure way for us, at least securer than before way for us, to share our data with them. And then when you open it up further from just current accounts to other types of accounts, I could also share, for example, in the UK, my investment data, my pension data, to get offers from the market. When there are more offers, when there's more competition, there's more innovation, and prices go down. So far, so good. And in fact, for consumers, this means more options, which is wonderful. For example, an airline might be able to give me a savings account based on some of the mileage that I accrue. Or it might be that my supermarket actually starts to turn my points into cash, but do it in a smart way that works for me, that is good for my life. And what that means, of course, is that for every single service that a big bank like HSBC in this example has, there's many fintechs that are trying to do the same thing today. However, they need data. They need to make sure that they can analyze your data in order to give you a tailored service. And so what we see today is a rise in AI-driven fintechs. Using open banking, open finance, they're trying to make sure that analyzing your data, they give you tailored services that work for you. If you're an Uber driver, if you're a professor, if you're a jet setter that travels around the world. At Oxford, we've been doing some research into what AI means for finance. This is something that you won't see in any press yet, but hopefully in the next few years. Baking in the oven is what we see here. One of the things that we see here is that AI can significantly reduce some costs in finance, about understanding who the customer is, making sure that the customer is using the products correctly, making sure we understand and can talk to the customer. And all of that can translate into higher financial education and inclusion. Let me give you some examples. This fintech, which I studied in Australia, Wiser, is a fintech that doesn't just give you loans, but it connects to your current account in order to monitor your activity and teach you ways to pay off your loan sooner. So for example, it might tell you, Pinar, every morning you stop by Starbucks to get your coffee on the way to work. How about we get you a machine at home and you save those 3-4 pounds and you can save that towards your loan. There are many ways that monitoring behavior can also give you a chance to nudge behavior in the right way. And of course, in the case of bad guys, in the wrong way. Here's another example. One of our graduates from Oxford went on to work for a bank in Dubai. And while working, she realized that a lot of the services that she was getting in daily life, such as the waiters in restaurants, the maids in her home, the drivers that belonged to the bank, they lived under poor conditions and they were getting cash because they didn't have bank accounts. They didn't speak English super well. And when they were trying to send money to their families, which were typically in places like India, Bangladesh, Philippines, half of the money was lost in remittance. So you can say that these people are severely financially excluded. In order to give them a bank account, though, our student, Padmini, had to do something very important, which was understand the common languages and dialects that these people spoke, and then train chatbots, such that chatbots could chat to these people who were not highly literate either, in order to understand their dialect and get to understand where they were trying to send money to and what their specifics were. In some cases, also even understand their identity, which was from their local country. Only after training chatbots with AI for several months was she able to start to go to the market and get these people, understand them, and also build payment trails such that money could safely arrive in their family in Bangladesh. This is a case of financial inclusion, and it wouldn't have been possible without AI. So far, the picture is quite rosy. We see data, this is the economist saying data is the new oil. I actually think data isn't the new oil because oil is running out, whereas data is more meaningful and more valuable when it multiplies. However, at the same time, we need to look at who's going to be the winners of competition tomorrow. If we live in a world where there's so much competition, there's so much innovation, who are going to be the innovators? Is it going to be the fintechs? Is it going to be the banks absorbing the fintechs? Or is it going to be entirely someone else? We've been doing some research in this area as well, trying to predict the future. One of the things that we see is that fintechs have what we call a liability of newness, meaning when they're new in the market, because of the high threshold for trust, customers don't trust them. So a lot of the new digital banks that you see in the US, in the UK, everywhere in the world, They have lots of customers, but their customers don't put their life savings there. Their customers don't get their salaries deposited in there. So the amount of money that is turning around in these digital banks is actually quite low. On the other hand, we have some other players that already are in the lives of customers. We may say that we don't trust them very much, but we use them every day. And so the pink elephant in the room is big tech. Big tech and the way that we use big tech, the way that Apple here, the way that Google is, in my email, the way that Alexa, my kids are still trying to imitate my voice to order things on Alexa. They try every day and they're getting closer. So all of this shows us that although we may say that we don't trust big tech, it's too inconvenient to not use them. So they are in our lives, and many of them at the same time. And so what is going to be the effect of big tech in finance and other regulated industries? Because there's so much regulation, do we expect them to stay out? Research shows that that's not the case. We have been looking into not just finance, but into healthcare, into education, to understand whether big tech is going to disrupt these industries too. When an industry is data intensive, when an industry is prone to a disruption by AI, we cannot imagine big tech to stay out of it. So specifically, some news for you. Amazon is offering services in Mexico. Not just in Mexico, this is just one. Google is gaining fintech users. Google announced that they would start a bank in the US, and then they changed their mind and said, actually, you know what? Being a bank is too much regulation. Why don't we just invest into digital banks around the world? That gets us to data quicker. There are more Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp accounts in the world than there are bank accounts. And Facebook and Meta has the largest number of e-money licenses, meaning they are in the best position to be the bank for the unbanked. Amazon is already offering loans to their sellers and soon also to their buyers in different countries. So we see that big tech is coming in big time into this industry, and because of the way that they understand AI and their entire business model is based on AI, we cannot expect them to not disrupt the industry. There's also other ways in which we see big tech entry in other sectors. In a recent paper, which you can access online, we have looked into big tech digitally colonizing the healthcare sector. What you see here is an ecosystem of healthcare. Everything's fine, peachy, well, maybe not with the NHS, but the whole thing is actually working. The first point of entry that we see is big tech being the IT providers. Google Cloud, AWS are the biggest cloud providers in the world. And they have many deals with hospitals, NHS, etc. It makes sense to do it this way for the hospitals and healthcare providers. However, once that deal is done, of course, these providers cannot look into the data, but they can then start to sell more services. And around the world, many hospital chains, as well as many different clinics and the parts of the NHS, have made deals for Google and Amazon to provide prediction services. If someone can predict what illnesses might await me in 5-10 years, that's not just worth a lot of money, but also a lot of emotional value. So prediction is particularly helpful in the sector of healthcare. However, once those prediction services start, those machines start to learn about my healthcare too. And so the next step that follows is the following. Google is the largest investor into biotech around the world. Google and Microsoft are already developing healthcare devices. Apple has a long-standing deal with the Stanford Hospital to provide their heartbeat data for cardiological research. What makes these guys special, however, is that they also have patient data, just like the Alexa in my home that kids are fiddling with, just like the Apple Watch, and just like your email. So overall, what I'm predicting is that in sectors like finance and healthcare, data competition, data-driven competition will give a huge advantage to big tech, and we can imagine that big tech will be an even bigger part of our lives in the future. Thank you very much.